Well, our next presenter is Caleb Rollins, who's no stranger to all of you, especially because it's a repeat performance. He was a presenter at this very conference just last year as a student and is invited back. So those of you who presented this morning, you can aspire to a repeat invitation to come back as you move into your vocational service. Caleb is the new development manager of Lutheran Services in America, known as LSA, yet one more acronym, based in Washington, D.C. LSA is one of the largest healthcare and human services networks in the country, representing 300 Lutheran nonprofit organizations throughout the U.S. and the Caribbean. Before this role, Caleb served as the program director of Safe Place Homework Help, a K-12 and adult tutoring program at Trinity Lutheran Congregation in Minneapolis. In this position, he worked most significantly and consistently with members of the Ethiopian, Oromo, and Somali immigrant and refugee communities in the Twin Cities. Caleb received his BA from Valpo in International Service in 2015, and as I said, was a presenter here last year. But we're delighted that you're back. I'm glad I can welcome you back to Valpo, and we look forward to hearing from you. Go, Caleb.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Linda, thank you very much for the gracious introduction. Thank you to Dr. Elizabeth Lynn and the rest of the staff at the Institute for Leadership and Service for inviting me here today. I'm truly humbled to be here, and humbled in part because I feel nowhere near as qualified as the rest of the members on this panel with their breadth of experience and knowledge working with immigrant and refugee populations. In fact, 8 months ago, I had almost never really had any contact with people who could be identified as immigrants or refugees. And then through Lutheran Volunteer Corps, I was afforded an opportunity to be placed in a small Lutheran church in Minneapolis in a neighborhood that is, for better or worse, known as Little Mogadishu. This church is the only permanent Christian congregation in a neighborhood that has at least 4 mosques, attended by the East African peoples that live in this community. Some of these Somali, Oromo, Ethiopian, and Eritrean members of this community chose to come to the U.S. Others were forced here by war, famine, political persecution. And here I was, this white Christian U.S. citizen, asked to be present in this community and do direct service here. And I wasn't quite sure what to do with that. But with my tremendous training from Dr. Chuck Schaefer and Dr. Elizabeth Lynn and some others here at Valparaiso University, as well as my Christian faith, I thought, okay, this can be maybe a practicing of that accompaniment model that we've heard so much about already today. Katie talked about it this morning. And I thought, okay, I can do this. I can practice this ethic of hospitality that I see as so present in the ministry of Jesus. And as I started to do that, these lines of who was I think Katie said today, there's accompany, or the person who accompanies and accompanimenter or something along those lines. And I'm not sure which one of those I was. As I tried to practice hospitality and walk alongside those in this community, it became pretty clear that I was a stranger as well. And that the families that I was working with were being open to me and being welcoming to me, whether that's allowing me to be who I was in the space that was really their home, or allowing me to practice my own faith and asking me about that, or even seeming to have a sense for when I really wanted some Somali tea and then bringing that Somali tea for me. If you ever get a chance, by the way, Somali tea is delicious. And so I quickly learned that there wasn't really this stark divide between those who accompany and those who are the accompaniment-tours or accompany. And I must say that I wasn't sure what to do with that. But I looked towards the pastor at this church, Pastor Jane, and instead of talking about what I did on a daily basis, as I said, I really don't feel as qualified as some of the others on this panel. So I'm going to talk about what Pastor Jane did. Someone who's been in this community for over 20 years. She is a diminutive white woman with wire-rimmed glasses who is just a surprising force in this neighborhood. And a surprising force because she practices what she calls a ministry of presence, which is what we try to do at this church, similar to along the lines, I think, of what Pam was saying. And she did this by going for walks in the neighborhood so that she was present. The number of people who know her in this neighborhood is incredible. She did this by going to community meetings where perhaps she was the only white person in the room, definitely the only Christian in the room. She did this by year after year supervising the tutoring program that I was a part of and listening to the moms, and maybe they didn't like something that I was doing, so she would listen to them and then she would tell me to change what I was doing. She did this by hosting community dinners that we would invite people who were Muslim, people who were Christian from our congregation, from other congregations, and gathering around a table. More intentional interfaith dialogues. And it was through this ministry of presence that I really learned how to walk this line between being the person who is accompanied and the accompaniment toward. Because I think you talked about the mystery of accompaniment earlier. And I think it is in this who is on what side of the line. And I don't know if there is really one of those anymore. Or perhaps maybe there never was. And so I'm going to close by sharing a quote from Henry Nouwen, who was often brought up in devotions by Pastor Jane. And she shares a quote that I think explained what she tried to do, and she tried to build those relationships so she could have influence in the neighborhood, just as Pam said. But she did it through